The email loaded slow, mocking me with its spinning wheel. Another sales report, another quarter inching upward. I hated Tuesdays, hated the predictable drone of the office, the fluorescent hum, the way my meticulously planned life felt like a script I couldn't deviate from. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. My heart hammered against my ribs. It'd been, God, how long? 3 years? Maybe 4? Since she'd called me directly. Usually it was short, clipped texts. Birthday wishes for me, requests for money disguised as emergencies for her. I almost didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail, pretend I was in a meeting. But something, a prickle of dread, a familiar ache made me swipe right. Hello? My voice was tight, professional, laced with a defensiveness I couldn't quite shed. I'm Evie Moreau, department head at Thorn Industries. Supposedly composed, supposedly successful, supposedly over them. Evangeline? Her voice was wrong, hollowed out, like a well after a long drought. Is that you, darling? Mom? What is it? What's wrong? I leaned back in my chair, the leather cold against my spine. A sob shuddered through the line, barely contained. Then the words, flat and toneless. Your father, he's gone. The world tilted. The fluorescent lights flickered, blurring the edges of my vision. The half-finished sales report on my screen swam into a meaningless jumble of numbers. Gone? What? What do you mean gone? I squeezed the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. A heart attack. Yesterday. At the mill. They couldn't. Her voice broke completely. I heard my sister, Clara, wailing in the background. Clara, who could cry on cue faster than any actress. Dad! Gone. Just like that. Yesterday? You're telling me this now? The carefully constructed wall of professional composure crumbled. My voice cracked, raw with disbelief and a rising tide of fury. We were in shock, Evie. Everything happened so fast. We didn't know what to do. More sobbing, Clara's wails intensifying. It was always a goddamn performance. The funeral? I choked out, trying to find some solid ground in the swirling chaos of my emotions. When? Friday. 2 p.m. Street. Jude's. I'll be there. The words were a promise, a vow, a desperate attempt to cling to some semblance of control. I hung up, the silence in my office suddenly deafening. I stared out the panoramic window, at the glittering cityscape spread before me. A life I'd built brick by painful brick, miles away from the suffocating small town I'd escaped. Dad had been proud of this. He'd understood the need to get out, to make something more. He'd quietly slipped me extra cash when I was scrimping through college, knowing Mom would find a reason to confiscate it. He'd driven 3 hours to see my tiny, cramped dorm room, beaming like I'd just won the lottery. And now he was gone. Memories crashed over me in a tidal wave. Mom favoring Clara, always. Clara's dance recitals, Clara's clothes, Clara's everything. Me, relegated to the sidelines, a quiet, diligent shadow. I made the debate team in high school, a huge achievement for me. Mom skipped my first competition to take Clara to some audition. I got my first job at 16, so I could afford something for myself for once, and she complained that I wouldn't be able to help Clara with her homework anymore. The resentment had simmered for years, a bitter undercurrent to every interaction. It's why I left. Why I put miles between us, why I poured myself into my career. And Dad, he was the only one who called, who checked in, who made me feel seen, even when he was trapped in that suffocating life. He'd visit me when he could, sneaking away during his lunch breaks to show me the newest book he found in a second-hand bookstore. Now he was gone, leaving me to face them alone. This couldn't be happening. Street? Jude's was packed. More people than I thought existed in Harmony Creek, all crammed into the small, stuffy church. Faces blurred together, distant relatives I barely recognized, mill workers in ill-fitting suits, old neighbors with pitying eyes. They were all here for Dad, I hung back, near the entrance, watching the carefully orchestrated tableau unfold near the altar. Mom and Clara, front and center, accepting condolences with practiced grief. Mom in a black dress that swallowed her whole, dabbing at her eyes with a lace-edged handkerchief. Clara, her mascara perfectly intact, sobbing dramatically into the arms of some distant aunt. "Oh, Margaret, I am so sorry." Aunt Millie clutched Mom's hand, her voice dripping with sympathy. "Richard was such a good man. What will you do without him?" Mom's voice trembled, carrying across the room. "It's going to be so hard, Millie. He was our rock, our provider. I don't know how we'll manage now. We're broke." Clara let out a particularly theatrical sob, and 3 more relatives rushed to comfort her. I noticed her nails, perfectly manicured, a shade of shimmering silver. Clearly, tragedy hadn't impacted her budget. "He worked so hard for us," Mom wailed, loud enough for half the church to hear. "Now it's just me and Clara. With nothing." My jaw clenched. Nothing? She hadn't worked a day in her life. Clara had bounced from one dead-end hobby to another, funded entirely by Dad's backbreaking labor. I had to get out. The air was thick with hypocrisy, suffocating me. I slipped through the crowd, pushed open the heavy oak doors, and gulped in the icy December air. Dad had called just 2 weeks ago. Sounded exhausted, as always. "Just finished my second shift, Evie girl. Gotta keep the ladies comfortable, you know?" I should have said something. Should have told him to slow down, to take care of himself. But I just mumbled something about being busy, promised to call him back later. Now there was no later. I went back inside, steeling myself for the next act. More handshakes, more platitudes, more thinly veiled pity. Finally, the priest finished his eulogy, a bland recitation of facts that barely scratched the surface of the man Dad had been. People began to file out, heading towards the cemetery for the burial. I was about to slip away, make my excuses, when Mom's voice cut through the crowd. "Evangeline, wait. We need to talk." I turned, bracing myself. Mom and Clara led me to the small, cluttered kitchen of the church. The air smelled of stale coffee and potpourri. Mom turned to me, her eyes red-rimmed. Her voice was trembling. "Evie, darling, I know things haven't been good between us. I know I haven't been the best mother. Your father's death showed me how fragile life is. We need to put aside our differences and be a family again." Clara rolled her eyes, making a face. A genuine, unguarded face, for once. Fragile life? This, from the woman who'd spent the last 30 years complaining about her bunions. I wanted to scream, to unload all the years of resentment and hurt. Tell her that Dad might still be alive if he hadn't worked himself to death to support their indolence. Tell her that, while I was working to make something of myself, they were laughing at me. But I bit back the words, swallowed the bile. This wasn't the time. Not now. "Why now, Mom? Is this about money?" The question hung in the air, sharp and accusatory. Her face crumpled, a mask of wounded innocence. "How can you say that, Evangeline? Your father left us the house, some savings. We'll manage. I just want my daughter back." Clara remained silent, her eyes darting between us. A predator assessing its prey. "I'm not against reconciling," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. "But maybe we should take it slow. Build trust. Gradually." "Of course, darling," Mom said, her voice regaining its saccharine sweetness. "Whatever you think is best." The drive back to the city was a blur. The streetlights blurred into streaks of yellow, mirroring the turmoil in my mind. Could it be real? Could Mom actually want to repair our relationship? Had Dad's death shaken her to her core? Or was it all a performance? A carefully crafted manipulation to get what she wanted? I didn't know. And that uncertainty gnawed at me. A week after the funeral, the phone rang. "Mom." Again. "Evangeline? It's Mom." "Honey, I'm making your favorite. Lasagna." Just like old times, lasagna? She hadn't made lasagna in years. Not unless Clara had specifically requested it. Okay, Mom. I can come. I arrived at the house, the familiar dread tightening my chest. It looked the same. Small, cluttered, smelling faintly of dust and despair. Except now, Dad's work boots were missing from their usual spot by the door. Clara was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my arrival. Everything's so expensive now, Mom sighed, pulling the lasagna from the oven. I nearly fainted when I saw the grocery bill. And don't even get me started on the utilities. The electric company must think we're made of money. I watched her arrange the food on plates. New plates, I noticed. The old ones were chipped and cracked. Have you started looking for work yet, Clara? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Clara avoided my eyes, fiddling with her phone. Oh, sweetie, the job market is terrible right now, Mom chimed in. Did you know cheese prices went up 30%? And the internet bill. Highway robbery, I tell you. At the dinner table, Clara finally put her phone down long enough to join the complaint fest. My friends say everything's like twice as expensive now. How's anyone supposed to live? I took a sip of water, choosing my words carefully. You know, when you're working, getting a regular paycheck, these price increases aren't quite so noticeable. The hint hung in the air, thick and heavy. But Mom and Clara acted like they hadn't heard it. We'll find something, eventually, Mom continued, refilling her wine glass. But for now, we'll just have to tighten our belts a bit. That sounds like an excellent idea, I said, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. Belt tightening is very character building. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Clara's face twisted into a scowl, and Mom's smile became fixed and brittle. They spent the rest of the evening barely speaking, responding to my attempts at conversation with cold monosyllables. This pattern continued for several weeks. I'd come over for dinner, Mom would complain about expenses, I'd make pointed comments about employment, and they'd pretend not to understand. It was like a bizarre dance where everyone knew the steps but refused to acknowledge the music. Then came the Saturday when the other shoe finally dropped. I'd just finished helping Mom clear the dinner dishes when she cleared her throat nervously. Evangeline, honey, we need to talk about something. Here it comes, I thought. The washing machine broke down yesterday. Water everywhere. And you know how expensive repairs are these days. We really need a new one, she continued, with Clara nodding vigorously beside her. I was wondering if you could. Well, if you could help us out with the money for it. I looked at them both. My mother with her pleading eyes, my sister with her expectant expression. Part of me felt sorry for them, sitting in this house full of memories of Dad, trying to navigate life without his constant support. But another part remembered all the times they'd taken advantage of his generosity, bled him dry with their endless wants and needs. I won't give you money, I said firmly, watching their faces fall. But I'll buy you a washing machine myself. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, but she had no choice. Fine, she said, her voice tight with disappointment. If that's how you want to do it. I could tell this wasn't the answer they'd hoped for. They wanted cash, no strings attached. But I wasn't about to hand over money that would probably never go towards a washing machine at all. The washing machine I chose was a solid Whirlpool model. Not top of the line, but reliable and energy efficient. I scheduled the delivery and installation for a Tuesday morning, taking a half day off work to supervise the process. Mom circled the newly installed machine like a real estate agent evaluating a questionable property. It's nice, she said in a tone that suggested it was anything but, though I saw this gorgeous Samsung model at the appliance store. It had all these special features. Well, I cut in, shouldering my purse. When you're ready to buy your own washing machine, you can get the fanciest model they make. Mom's frown suddenly transformed into a laugh. Oh, I'm just teasing, honey. This is perfect. Really? I nodded, not believing her for a second. Over the next few months, it seemed like everything in the house decided to break down at once. First, it was the refrigerator. The repair guy took one look and declared it beyond saving. I spent a Sunday afternoon appliance shopping with Mom, who miraculously kept her opinions about price tags to herself this time. Then the dishwasher gave out, flooding the kitchen floor. Clara called me in a panic, as if she'd never heard of washing dishes by hand. "We can't live like this," she wailed over the phone. So I added a dishwasher to my growing list of purchases. The coffee maker was next. "Your father always said a house needs good coffee," Mom reminded me, her voice trembling slightly. I couldn't argue with Dad's memory, so I bought them a nice Keurig model. Each time I made the purchases myself or paid the repair people directly, Mom would hint about how it would be easier if I just gave her the money. But I stood firm. I'd seen too many of Dad's home repair funds go towards Clara's shopping sprees over the years. The living room furniture was the biggest expense. Mom mentioned one evening how the old sofa reminded her too much of Dad, how he used to fall asleep there, watching TV, after his long shifts. The cabinets were too painful to look at because they held his old magazines and books. So I replaced them all. New sofa, new cabinets, new memories. My credit card took the hit, but at least I knew exactly where the money was going. With each purchase, I told myself I was helping them adjust to life without Dad, making their home more comfortable. But sometimes, late at night, I wondered if I was just enabling their dependency, the same way Dad had done for so many years. Was one actually helping them, or just postponing the inevitable? "I got an interview," Clara announced during another dinner, practically bouncing in her chair. "It's for an administrative position at Thompson & Brooks." I nearly choked on my meatloaf. After months of vague promises about job hunting, this was the first concrete news. Mom beamed with pride, as if Clara had already been made CEO. "That's great," I said cautiously. "When is it?" "Next week," Clara replied, pushing her peas around the plate. "But, there's kind of a problem. I need something professional to wear. You know how important first impressions are, right? HR people totally judge you on that stuff. We could go shopping together," I offered. "I know some great places for office wear." Clara's face scrunched up like I'd suggested we go dumpster diving. "Evie, I'm 23. I think I can shop for myself. I found the perfect suit already. I just need the money to buy it. Like, $500 should cover it." They tag-teamed me for the next hour. Clara talked about how this job could be her big break. Mom reminisced about how she'd helped me buy my first interview outfit she hadn't. Eventually, exhausted and hoping to encourage Clara's apparent job hunting efforts, I broke my own rule. "Fine," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm transferring $500. But I want to see this suit when you get it." Clara hugged me, all smiles. "You're the best big sister ever." A week later, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it. Clara! Definitely not in an office suit, posing at what looked like a nightclub. She was wearing a sparkly red dress that probably cost exactly $500. My blood began to boil. I clicked through more photos. Clara dancing, Clara doing shots, Clara living it up in her interview suit. The anger was instant. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The next morning, I drove straight to Mom's house. Clara was still in her pajamas at noon, nursing what looked like a hangover. "How did the interview go?" I asked sweetly. "Oh, good," she mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "Really good. That's wonderful. Can I see the suit you wore? The one you bought with my money?" Clara's face went pale. "It's, at the dry cleaners." "That's funny," I said, pulling out my phone. "Because according to your Instagram, my $500 bought you quite a different kind of outfit." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "You're spying on me." "It's not spying when you post it publicly." "You lied to me, Clara. You never had an interview, did you?" "You're so mean," she wailed. "I needed that dress. All my friends were going to this party. And I gave you that money for a job interview." "Evangeline, don't be so hard on her," Mom cut in, her face flushed. "She's young. She needs to have some fun too. That was it. The last straw. I'm done, I said, my voice shaking. I'm done buying your appliances. I'm done fixing your house. And I'm definitely done giving you money for fake job interviews. You're on your own. I walked out, slamming the door on their protests. As I drove away, I could feel years of resentment bubbling up. They would never change. They would always be looking for the next handout, the next excuse, the next lie. For 3 weeks, I ignored every call, text, and voicemail from Mom and Clara. Each time their names popped up on my phone, I felt a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at their betrayal. Relief at not having to deal with their drama anymore. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I could finally breathe. Then December arrived, bringing with it the first snow and memories of past family Christmases. I was reviewing end-of-year reports in my apartment when the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found Mom standing there, wrapped in Dad's old winter coat. "Evangeline," she said softly, "can we talk?" I hesitated, but the sight of Dad's coat made my throat tight. He'd worn it to every one of my school events, every parent-teacher conference he attended alone because Mom was busy with Clara. "Christmas is coming," Mom continued, her breath visible in the cold hallway. "Your father always said holidays were for family." She was right about that. It was one of Dad's favorite sayings. Clara peeked out from behind Mom, looking uncharacteristically subdued. "Please, Evie," Mom's voice cracked. "Just 5 minutes." I stepped aside to let them in, already wondering if I was making a mistake. They settled onto my couch while I went to make tea. Dad's solution for everything. The familiar ritual of brewing and pouring helped calm my nerves. "We miss you," Mom said as I handed her a cup. "The house feels empty without you visiting." Clara nodded, clutching her teacup. "I'm sorry about the dress thing," she mumbled. "I shouldn't have lied." I sat down, watching the steam rise from my tea. The anger that had sustained me for weeks felt distant now, replaced by a weary sadness. Maybe Dad would have wanted us to try again. Maybe the holidays were a time for second chances. "I just want us to be a real family again," Mom said, reaching for my hand. "Your father would have hated seeing us like this." We spent the next hour talking. Really talking for what felt like the first time in years. Mom shared stories about Dad that I'd never heard before. Clara showed me pictures from her actual job search, or so she claimed. It felt nice. Normal. Like maybe we could build something new from the ashes of our old relationships. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope. The next day at work, my phone buzzed with a notification from my bank app. A charge for $300 at Nordstrom. Before I could process what I was seeing, another notification. $450 at Saks. My hand shaking, I opened the app. Purchase after purchase at high-end clothing stores, all within the last hour. I immediately called the bank. "Yes, I need to report fraudulent charges and block my card immediately," I said, my voice tight with fury. After confirming the card was blocked, I scrolled through the charges again. Then I remembered. Clara had asked to use my bathroom before they left yesterday. She must have gone through my purse while she was in there. I checked the time. 3:45 p.m. The workday wouldn't end for another 2 hours, but this couldn't wait. I gathered my things, told my assistant I had a family emergency, and headed for my car. Adrenaline coursed through my veins. I was beyond anger, beyond disappointment. This was a betrayal of the deepest kind. I burst through the front door without knocking, my hands shaking with rage. Clara was sprawled on the new sofa I'd bought them, surrounded by shopping bags from those stores. She barely looked up from her phone. "Give me back my credit card," I demanded, my voice trembling. Mom hurried in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Evangeline, honey, why are you making such a scene?" "She stole from me, Mom. She went through my purse yesterday and took my credit card." Clara rolled her eyes and reached into her designer purse probably purchased with my stolen card and pulled out my credit card. "Fine. Here's your precious card back." I just needed some stuff for the Christmas party, and you're always so stingy lately. I snatched the card from her hand. Stingy? I bought you an entire house worth of appliances and furniture, and you repay me by stealing? Don't call your sister a thief. Mom stepped between us, her face flushed. She just needed some nice clothes for the holidays. If you weren't so selfish with your money, she wouldn't have had to take matters into her own hands. I looked at them, really looked at them. My mother standing there, self-righteous and entitled, defending theft as if it were perfectly normal. Clara surrounded by evidence of her crime, playing the victim as always. They were sitting on the sofa I bought, in front of the TV, I paid for, probably planning to make coffee later in the coffee maker I purchased. And suddenly something clicked in my mind. A plan began to form. I took a deep breath and forced a smile. You know what, Mom? Maybe you're right. Maybe I have been too rigid about money. It is Christmas, after all. In fact, why don't we have Christmas here this year? With all the relatives? Mom's face lit up. Oh, honey, that would be wonderful. I'll call everyone right away. We can do it on Christmas Eve, just like when you were little. Over the next few days, I played my part perfectly. When Mom called to discuss holiday plans, I enthusiastically agreed to everything. I even arrived early on December 24th, dressed in my best holiday outfit. We need to get some last-minute things for the party, Mom said. Would you mind? Of course. I pulled out my wallet and handed them several $100s. Get whatever you need. They practically ran to their car, probably afraid I'd change my mind. As soon as they turned the corner, I pulled out my phone. Yes, this is Evangeline Moreau. The movers can come now. I'd arranged everything in advance. Movers who were willing to work on Christmas Eve for double pay, a storage unit across town, even a small moving truck. They arrived within minutes, clearly eager to earn their holiday bonus. One by one, every item I'd purchased over the past months was carried out. The washing machine that started it all, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the coffee maker, the sofa where Clara had sat counting her stolen goods, the cabinets, everything. Finally, I placed a small, carefully wrapped box under their Christmas tree. I took one last look around the half-empty house, remembering all the times Dad and I had sat in this room, sharing quiet conversations while Mom and Clara were out shopping. The cycle was over. My phone started ringing around 4:00 in the afternoon. I was sitting in my apartment, enjoying a glass of wine and watching the snow fall outside my window, when Mom's hysterical voice exploded through the speaker. We've been robbed! Someone broke in and took everything. The washing machine, the fridge, all the furniture. It's all gone! I took another sip of wine. No one robbed you, Mom. I took it all. Everything I bought over the past few months. It's in storage now. You can't do this, Mom shrieked. I'm calling the police. I actually laughed at that. Go ahead. I've got something for you under the tree, by the way. You should open it. I could hear her stomping across the room, the rustle of paper as she tore open the gift. It's just a bunch of receipts. What kind of stupid gift is this? Those aren't just any receipts, Mom. They're proof that I purchased every single item I removed today. Every appliance, every piece of furniture, all paid for by me. The police will be very interested in seeing those, I'm sure. Oh, and while you're at it, you might want to explain Clara's little credit card shopping spree. You vindictive little. Mom's voice cracked with rage. How dare you do this to us? On Christmas Eve. What are we supposed to tell everyone? I don't know. Maybe the truth? That you and Clara have been living off Dad's money and my generosity while refusing to work? That Clara stole my credit card? That you defended her theft? I hung up and blocked her number. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd heard in years. The next morning, Christmas Day, my phone rang again. This time, it was my cousin Rachel. Oh my God, Evie. She was laughing so hard she could barely speak. You will not believe what happened last night. Tell me everything. So, Margaret started telling everyone this dramatic story about how ungrateful you were, how you'd stolen all their furniture on Christmas Eve. But then Uncle Bob asked why they hadn't bought their own furniture with all the money they'd saved from not working all these years. And Aunt Susan mentioned how Uncle Peter, my dad's name, had told her he was working double shifts to support them. I could picture the scene perfectly. Over the next few weeks, the messages poured in. First angry, then pleading, then desperate. Mom claimed they couldn't afford groceries. Clara swore she'd learned her lesson. They needed to reconcile. They'd changed. They missed me. They loved me. I blocked every new number they used to contact me, changed my email address, removed them from all my social media. Sometimes I wonder how they're doing. If they finally found jobs. If they sold the house. If they learned anything from all this. But those thoughts don't keep me up at night anymore. I built my own life, far away from their drama and their lies. It's a good life, even if it's a little lonely sometimes. The weight is gone, and that is enough. That's the end. I think this version hits the marks you specified. Let me know what you think, and if you want me to revise or expand on any part of it. I can also make the language even more raw if you want.